Good morning. Today is Friday, December 22nd, 2023. My name is Terry Morgan. We are here to practice Wudang Qigong. We have the first set, Begin at Extreme Emptiness, Wudang Qigong, that we've been working on. I'm going to cover that set again today with a little bit more detail from Professor Liu's book on Wudang Qigong and a little bit more discussion of these concepts, as well as a few things that we want to pay attention to in our physical practice. Let's get started. The first edition, this is the first edition of Professor Liu's book on Wudang Qigong, came out in 1998-99. I did the translation. I've recently done a new translation and republished the book with his original Chinese, so it's English and Chinese, and new illustrations. The pictures that I took were not great. They were not. They were not good. It was film. It was, I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't. And I was trying, but I didn't know. And so I did the best that I could. We had this set up to be a teaching book, more of a for his workshops than textbook. So we have facing pages with Chinese on one side and English on the other, so that if he was teaching, he could be looking at the Chinese, and the American students, Canadian students, Jamaican students who could read English but not the Chinese could look at the English side. So as I went back through to do the second edition, I looked at that as both an advantage and something that was never going to work in electronic format. There is really no side-by-side. You can put side-by-side if you want, but nobody's ever going to be able to read it, because in today's world, so many books are consumed on tablets, e-readers, phones, and side-by-side only works in print. It only works if you're printing something. I looked at that as well and considered that the second edition was something I did, intending it to be a textbook. I don't expect to revise it again. I don't expect Professor Liu to revise it. It's there. And with that idea in mind, that's part of what I'm doing in this series as well. It's just, we're going to finish everything up. It's going to be here. That sense of how to put this particular book together as a textbook for people who want to learn, who are not necessarily wanting to compare side by side the two languages, but may want to look at some of the particular terms in the original language. That is still possible. That is very much available in the second edition. It's just not on facing pages. So this exercise has got these pictures in this order with these names on these pages. that is the way that both sections are set up. So if you're looking at illustration 2.3 in English, you can turn to illustration 2.3 in Chinese and see exactly what would be there in that language. So it's as direct a translation as I can get. And that part of how I approach the translation that holds for both books. The goal was not for me to magically decide how Professor Liu should speak and then use that particular version of English in the translation. No. My job, what I tried to do, was to understand what he was saying as closely as I could, render it in English. Now, some things don't translate well, and that's part of today's lesson. As closely as I could to what he was saying. Not what I wanted it to be. Not some magical foo-foo out here that says, oh, well, I'm going to reinterpret this so the English speakers can understand it, because my English is wonderful and I speak Chinese, so my Chinese is even better than my English, so I'm going to let these people understand, and I'm going to say what I want to say so that they can understand. I had that experience. It was wrong. That's not translating, that's not interpreting. That's imposing another perspective, another point of view on the speaker, the writer, the person who wrote it. Okay? It's not what he said. I heard that. I did. I heard somebody, Professor Lee was speaking, there was an interpreter, not myself, and I heard the question, I understood the question, I understood Professor Liu's answer, and what he said in Chinese is not what the interpreter said. It was a problem. That's something that I tried really hard to avoid. So, as closely as I could, I invite the comparison. There are terms that we use, and as I was learning, had to learn, what is that? What are we talking about here? All right. In the first exercise, this is Begin at Extreme Emptiness. In the main points and functions, when the breath in the tian is sufficient, then water will succeed in reaching the channel. Energy and breath will go out and return through the large and small heavenly circles. When first studying Wudang Qigong, one's breath seems not so great. One can concentrate the intention, observing the centers of the Laogong acupuncture points, paying attention to regulating the breathing. It's the last paragraph, all right? Breath here is Qi. The reference is to Qi. The Qi in the Dantian, the lower Dantian we're talking about here. This is not all three of them. This is upper Dantian, middle Dantian, lower Dantian. We're talking about the lower Dantian. When the breath in the Dantian is sufficient, then water will succeed in reaching the channel. The reference is to saliva and keeping the breath well regulated so that the mouth doesn't become dry, and you can continue practicing. If the qi seems not so great, concentrate the intention. This is a particular concept. It's not, well, let me think about yin, that's idea. I'm thinking about something, that's idea. Is translated as mind, is also translated in here, I translated it as intention. That concept appears throughout all of the internal arts. It's different than focus, it's different than mindfulness, it's different than a whole bunch of other things. It's yi. It includes a way of thinking, it includes a process of thinking, and it includes the underlying idea of thought. What do I intend to do? What's my purpose? Why am I here? What's going on? What am I doing? Focus on the laogong, the centers in the palms. When we do that, particularly in this exercise, we're also, and I need two hands to do this, but I got to book in the sand, so, all right. If I focus on the palm, right, as I breathe in, I keep that focus on the palm, and gradually, little by little, I start to pay attention to how that feels. My hand is here. How does that feel? As I bring my hand up, how does that feel? I can feel the difference, right? Keep the shoulder down, the elbow stays down, this pulls up. As I turn a hand over and press down, also paying attention to the center in the palm. What does that feel like? What am I paying attention to? At center, pressing down, slight press down along the front, right? Return to the lower tian. Keeping that intention. What's my intention? My intention is to pay attention to the center right here. I want to focus. I want to pay attention to what's going on right here. That has a side effect of helping to circulate the qi through the middle tian and back down to the lower tian, increasing the circulation between both and developing the circulation in the lower tian. Right? Physically, when breathing in and raising your arms, shoulders must relax. I just talked about that. The elbows must sink down. Yep, did. All right. The feet must support and the hips must sit. What does that mean? Sit. Sit. There's a chair there. Sit. All right. That sense of sitting isn't entirely the idea of sitting in a chair, and I'm going to talk about that. The feet must support. If the feet do not support the body well, and I have to back up to show that there's my feet, right? If the feet are not well placed and not supporting the body well, when you sink, right? You fall forward, you'll fall back, your balance is off. Nothing else will be in good alignment if your feet are not in good alignment. If you're starting from a sitting position, your hips and your shoulders must be in good alignment. Your feet should be well placed so that the legs are extended in a natural position. Again, this is if you're sitting. Legs are extended in a natural position from the hip, not to the sides, not closed, a naturally open position. All right? As we do this, placement, body placement. So as we do this, as we're paying attention to sitting here, supporting with the feet, pushing up and holding steady. That's the term in Chinese. Support doesn't quite capture all of the meaning, but it's as close as I could get. So support, sustain, provide the root for. This is the idea of support. As we sink, as we pay attention to the feet supporting and the hips sitting, pull up through the center in the lower part of the hips. Okay, so here's a hip. There's part of the bone in the hip that extends here. There's a leg here. Here's your leg over here. Right? This needs to move freely. Right? This area between the legs, this needs to pull up through the back and through the center so that you feel both the front pull up and the back pull up and the hip open. Okay? So the hip is well supported through the torso, and the leg can move separately from the hip. What you want to be able to do is move the legs independently. We're not working on that particularly today, other than this basic idea that as I sit the hip, right here, and this carries all the way through the hip girdle, right? Hips are up here. This is open, right? This is open. This really is. This is open. This is part of the spine. Okay. There are attachments. Study your anatomy. Skeletal anatomy is way simpler than so much other. All right, right here. As I sit, this pulls up and in so that my hip opens. And my legs are free to move. This simple, it's very simple, this simple technique is foundation for so much else. The effort to pull up inwardly and hold is something that we use throughout practice. It's not an add-on, it's that we use this. The idea that we sink the chi to the lower tian, absolutely. As we do that, pull up through the tian, physically pull up through the abdomen, the long muscles here in the abdomen, and the small ones that connect into the hip and up into the ribs. Keep the waist open. Pull up through the back. So pull up and into the spine. Pull up through the center. And hold. Breathe. Knees are bent just a little bit. Hold. And relax. We're going to do this a couple more times, or actually 6 times. As we practice, pay attention to all of this fine movement. Pay attention to all of the internal work that I just talked about. So we've got the breath. Focus on the lao gong, the center of the palms. Pay attention to the lower tian, the middle tian. Pay attention to supporting through the feet, the yung chuan, the bubbling well in the base of the foot, holds to the floor. As we pull up through the back, pull in through the front. Stand straight, knees relaxed, bent just a little tiny bit. Pull up through the bai hui, the crown of the head. Breathe in. And breathe out. Ladies, right hand on the outside. Gentlemen, left hand on the outside. Breathe in. And breathe out. Pull up even as you press down. Sink. And breathe in. And breathe out. And breathe in. Breathe out. Pay attention to the lower tian. Pull up to the middle tian. Keep the connection through both hands, both palms. Shoulders down. Sit. As you sit, pull up so your legs can bend. Sustain that. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. Again, breathe in. And breathe out. One more time, breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And both hands open to both sides. Press down along both sides. Pull up through the crown of the head. Raise the heels and lower. Stay there. Breathe in. And breathe out. And breathe in. And breathe out. As we finish each exercise, this separate, press down, pull up, raise the heels and lower. This helps the chi circulation. That's Professor Liu's. I asked, why are we doing this? And that's what we're doing. It helps as the chi comes up. It's easy to get stuck somewhere in the mid-back, at the back of the neck. As we come down, that little bit of a bounce can help to carry it over. It should not be exaggerated. It shouldn't be overdone. So sometimes you may see that I really do press up. That's what I'm feeling. It's going up. Other times it's barely noticeable. Right? It's more just a slight lean and then come down. A lot depends on what I'm doing at that particular moment with that particular exercise. Each time, how fluid that flow of energy, that flow of chi is, can be enhanced through that little bit more, bring it up over the top, right? That is what we want. We want that continuous circulation. If it's already, you've already got the circulation going, you don't need that much more, just it doesn't need to be that much. If it's not going so well, then add a little bit more. As we focus on extreme emptiness exercise, I'm closing this out. I'm going to move on. One of the things that I've talked about is this idea of foundation. Talked about it again this morning, that this is the beginning. First exercise. And the name of the exercise, Wudang Qigong, has meaning in philosophy and in the way in which we can, one of the ways in which we can think about developing our skills in the arts. Wu Ji Kai Wang Ji Kai Tai Chi. Wu Ji. There's nothing. Wu, empty, nothing. Ji, extreme. Tai Chi, the same Ji, same character. Wu Ji, extreme emptiness. There's nothing. There's nothing. Wang Qi. Something begins to take shape. We don't really, it's not really distinct, but it's not nothing anymore. There's something. Kai Tai Chi. Tai Chi, the yin and yang symbol. Yang is usually depicted as light, yin as dark. Light contains dark, dark contains light. That picture, Wu Ji Kai Wang Ji Kai Tai Chi, as we distinguish light and dark, we now have two. In the philosophy, there is a saying, Dao Shang Yi, Yi Shang Er, Er Shang San, San Shang Wan Wu. From the Tao comes one. From two comes three. From one comes two. From two comes three. From three comes 10,000 things. Tao, we can look at in many ways as this idea of the potential for everything and yet nothing. It's the way. It's just Dao Sheng, Sheng creates, gives birth to, Yi, one. What is one? Something, right? It's not nothing. Something. I have one. If I have one, I have two. It's required. It's not nothing. There's one. There's two. Right? That philosophical basis, that we start with nothing, that we start with empty, that we empty the mind, that we let go of appearances, that we stop paying attention to what the outward thing looks like, and start paying attention to what it actually might be. What is the essence? What is the chi? What is the spirit? What is Jing? What is energy? These concepts are part of and so tightly integrated with everything that Professor Liu taught. That's why I'm beating up on it today. It's going to reappear, this concepts that are unfamiliar to me when I first started, so I'm going to use me as the example. And frequently unfamiliar to someone who has never practiced, who may or may not have read some books on the topic, but has never developed the skill to work with, to use what we're actually trying to develop in our Qigong practice, that internal skill, that internal workmanship, that Neigong. I appreciate everyone who has been here this morning and has watched these last 3 in this set. This is the last time in this series that I'm going to cover Begin at Extreme Emptiness. If you have questions, if there's something that I missed, please let me know. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I will be back next week. Xingyi on Wednesday, Thursday Tai Chi, and Qigong on Friday. Pushing the mountain.